afternoon would center about the language varieties and registers. So we know for sure or we know for a fact that am I audible po? Narinig ako?
Yes po.
Okay, so we know for a fact that language is culture or language is product of our own culture. That as culture progresses or as culture develops, language also progresses and develops. And likewise, if society changes, society progresses, society develops, then language is also affected or language also develops. So that means that language, culture, and society are interrelated with one another. Okay? So they are pyramid that language cannot stand alone itself without culture and without society. And likewise, language is a product of both culture and likewise of our society. So for this up, and we use language in communication, right? And the type of language that we use in communication varies from one person to another, from one culture to another, from one society to another, from one context to another. Okay, so this afternoon we'll be discussing about language and the different varieties of language, and of course the type. I mean the appropriateness of language registers in different situations. Okay, so let us define what language variety is. Now, if we say variety, variety means various, right? Or different. That means to say that language comes in different forms or language has variety. Okay? So there are different forms of language. Maraming iba't ibang variety ng ating pong wika. So, variety or language variety, according to Schindler 2010, it is any set of language habits that is shared by a certain group of speakers for use in certain contexts. It means to say that language variety, it means that it is simply shifting the type of language that a person uses in communication depending on two important reasons. One is the person is spoken to, and the second one is the context where the communication happens or takes place. So, ibig pong sabihin, sa madaling salita lamang, ang paggamit natin po ng ating wika ay naayon ito sa dalawang mahalagang factors. Una, yung sino yung ating kinakausap, at pangalawa ay kung saan or yung konteksto or yung setting kung saan naganap or saan nangyari yung ating pong conversation or pag-uusap. So that means to say that language varies from depending on the person is spoken to and of course the context where the communication arises. So the term variety is used to refer to any variant of language, and each variety can be sufficiently delimited from another variant, and this differentiation may be social, historical, spatial, or a combination of this. That means to say that why is there such variety of language? Bakit nagkakaroon ng variety ang ating wika? Because that is basically or that is simply product of the social, of our social context, our history, the combination of all other factors. That's why language varies also. So, social linguistics, this is simply a branch of language that deals with the study of the relationship of language to the society. So that means to say that language is related to our society. The type of language that we use is sometimes formed or created by the society where we belong, and sometimes there is this exclusivity of the language depending on the society or depending on the social group that the society has. So that's why we have language varieties like your dialect, your jargon, your slang, your sociolect, your idiolect, colloquial, yan. informal, those are different varieties of language. Actually, language can actually be categorized into two. We have formal or the standard, and we have the informal or what we call the non-standard language. But under your informal language, there are still other varieties. So meron tayong slang, we have colloquial, we have jargon, we have dialect, sociolect, ethnolect, idiolect, and so on. Okay? So marami siyang iba't ibang klase ng wika under its either formal or informal. Now, let us try to read these conversations between neighbors, father and son, and of course, a teacher and a student. Loke and Bides, can you read Ramir? And then Bides will be the one to read the dialogue of Eric. O Loke, can you read Ramir? The dialogue of Ramir.
Repa Pips, dinampot ng mga alat kagabi si Totoy Daga ah.
Okay. Bides, can you read? Kawawang Utaw. Now, what kind of language is used in this exchange or in this conversation between Eric and Ramir? Ariego.
Slang po, sir.
Slang. Now, would you mind to tell me what are the slang or what are the slang words which are used in the conversation? Now, in the dialogue of Ramir, what are those slang words here, Jerlyn?
Repa Pips.
Okay. What else? Ano pa?
Totoy Daga.
Mm-hmm. We also have alat, right? Repa Peeps, alat. Okay. How about in the dialogue of Eric? What are the slang words which are used in the dialogue of Eric? May we have gripon?
Chuchu, sir. Nagchuchu.
Okay, what else?
Timbog.
Timbog. What else?
Utaw.
Utaw. What else?
Ayun lang po.
Yes, Gerald.
Dre.
Dre. Okay. So in the dialogue of Eric, we have there slang words like dre, nagchuchu, ayan, timbog, utaw. These are what we call slang. Therefore, when do we use slang? Kailan natin ginagamit ang slang na mga salita? Yes, Lawrence.
Pag nasa kanto po.
Nasa kanto. Okay. Yes, Rosemary.
When we communicate with our friends po.
We communicate casually with our friends. Okay. What else? Lawrence? Okay.
Sa mga kaibigan po natin or
Oh,
relatives.
Okay. So actually, a slang or sa Filipino, ito yung tinatawag nating salitang balbal. Ito yung pinakamababang klase or pinakamababang uri ng atin pong wika. At we actually use slang in informal conversations or in informal contexts. Okay? So for example, if we are communicating casually with our friends, okay, we use slang. Now, can we use slang in written communication? For example, if you are applying for a job and you are going to write an application letter, is it possible to use slang? Yes, Bides? Oh, what type of language to be used? Okay, that's right. Remember, people, that informal language, I repeat, informal language, whatever the variety it is only used for spoken discourses. Okay? Meaning, if we are, if I mean, in spoken discourses, like if we are talking or speaking, talking to someone, making conversation with someone, then we use informal language. However, if the communication is in the form of written, like business correspondence, letter application, inquiry letter, request letter of everything. Then, or simply in written form, the type of language to be used should always be formal. Okay? So dapat iniaayon natin yung paggamit natin ng language depende sa konteksto. Second, how about in the second exchange between the father and son, Olan and Sherwin? Kindly read the dialogue of Olan. Then we have Michael and Neil for Sherwin. Kindly read.
Michael, ano sir?
Michael.
Nak, nahuli ng mga pulis si Totoy Daga kagabi.
Okay, o nak, nahuli ng mga pulis si Totoy Daga kagabi. Okay? How about yung sinabi kong pangalawa? Neil.
Oo nga daw po, tay. Balita ko din po may nagsumbong sa mga para kung saan siya nagpapalamig kaya ayun.
Okay, now, if you are going to compare the conversation between the neighbors and the conversation between a father and son, is there any difference? May pinagkaiba ba? Loke?
Meron po, sir.
O ano?
Parang ano po, sir, mas formal po yung second conversation. Then, yung first conversation po, parang ano, parang pangkanto lang po, sir.
Okay, so do you agree, Michael, that mas formal? Formal ba yung yung conversation 2?
Sakto lang sir, nakontian lang yung ano,
Ha?
yung mga slang word.
Okay. Yes, Gerald?
Ano sir, yung sa conversation ng father and son, parang makikita mo yung superiority ng tatay sa anak. Parang
Politeness.
Opo.
Okay. But actually, I would want to make it clear also that in the exchange number 2, which happens at home, is still what? Informal. The type of language that is used in this second conversation is still what we call informal type of language. And what kind of informal language is that? Yes, Jerlyn.
Colloquial, sir.
Okay, that is what we call colloquial. So another informal or another variety of informal language is what we call colloquial. Okay, if we say colloquial, again, this is informal, but this is not so low, rather compared to the slang. So kung ang slang, ito yung pinakamababang uri ng wika, yung at least mas mataas naman ng level niya, ito yung tinatawag po nating colloquial na mga salita. Now, what are the colloquial? Paano natin malalaman na informal, colloquial ang mga to? We actually use the word nak, okay? We also use the word here, parak, okay, which we refer to police, right? Tay, okay? Nagpapalamig. Ayan, ano ba yan? Yan, those are what we call some colloquial expressions which are used in the conversation that would make it still an informal context. Now, as you observe, we actually use the Filipino language, right? In the conversation between the father and son and the two neighbors, the language that is used is Filipino. However, despite the fact that Filipino language is used, still meron pa rin siyang variety na ginamit. Meron pa ring variety ng wika that was used in the conversation between the neighbors and the father and son at home. Now, how about in this third conversation or third exchange which happens inside of the classroom? Can you read, sir? May we have Orculio for sir, and may we have idioma for the student. Can you read?
Sa wakas, magkakaroon na ng katarungan ang pagkasawi ng biktima ni Ruben Di Mag-iba alias Totoy Daga. Ano ang masasabi niyo mga mag-aaral?
Okay, idioma.
Sir, sana nga po. At sana din po mas mabilis ang paglilinis.
Okay, now, what type of language is used or what variety or type or variety of language is used in the exchange between the student and the teacher inside of the classroom? Sino na yung nagtaas ng kamay? Biglang nawala eh. Hindi ko nakita. Yes, Donna.
Formal language, sir.
Okay, it's formal language. That's right. So, in this exchange between the teacher and the student, the type of language that is used here is formal, or this is the standard language. Now, the big question is, when does language become a formal language? Kailan nagiging formal ang wika? Oh, answer me. Kailan nagiging formal ang wika? Yes, Donna.
If it's in the appropriate place po,
If it
like
is used in
school,
appropriate context. Okay. What else? Yes, Matthew? We use formal language if we talk to someone with higher in authority. Okay? What else? My question is, kailan nagiging formal ang wika? Paano natin masasabi na ang wika ay formal? Kapag ito ay ano? Wala ko tubig. Answer. Yes. Yes? Sino yon? Nawala na yung taas ng kamay. You answer. Kailan nagiging formal ang wika? If the language follows what? O, idioma.
Ano sir, to, when it comes to formal language,
Kapag po may exclamation point. Education.
it depends ano sir, dito, it depends on a context sir. Ganun, sir.
Okay. Yes, Dioren?
Kapag may manners, sir.
Pag may manners. Okay? Using proper words. Yes or Julio?
Sa kausap po, sir.
Pausap. Yes, Donna?
ano sir, kapag hindi po natin pinuputol yung mga salita, like for example, sa bakit po, di ba formal siya? Pag hindi po siya formal, but lang po siya.
Pag di
Ganyan.
pinuputol. Okay. So actually, a language would be considered formal. Yung depends on the person and the place, that is language use. Yan ang sinabi ko kanina. Yung paggamit po natin ng language, nakadepende sa dalawang mahalagang factor. Una, yung kausap natin, at pangalawa, saan nang nagaganap or saan nangyari yung conversation. That is what we call language use. My question is, when does language become formal? Basically, a language becomes formal if that language has established rules, patterns, and grammatical procedures on how to form it. So, ibig sabihin, kapag yung language natin, yung isang language ay meron siyang rules, meron siyang mga established na mga grammatical rules and patterns na kailangan nating sundin para ito ay mabuo, para ito ay ma-form, ang tawag po natin doon ay formal language. Okay, just like Filipino. In Filipino, meron tayong balarila o meron tayong gramatika sa Filipino. Likewise, in English, we have grammar rules in English. That means to say that if the language has its own established grammatical rules, grammatical laws, or there is this grammar, which is the heart of any language, then basically that is a formal type of language. Okay? So unahin muna natin yung tinatawag po nating slang. Okay, so under the informal type of language, the first conversation between Totoy Daga, okay, actually the three conversations just talk about one topic. They're actually talking about Totoy Daga, yung pagkakahuli ni Totoy Daga, right? But the dialogues are actually carried out, they're actually spoken in different ways or in different manners, depending on the context, meaning sa kanto, sa classroom, at saka sa bahay. At depende doon sa tao na kausap. Katropa, tatay, at saka teacher. So that means that there is a shift on the language depending on the context and depending on the person spoken to. And the first informal variety is what we call slang. Sa inuman tayo sa nakikipag-pot session tayo ng shabu, ayan. That basically used. Slang is actually the type of language that is used in that type of conversation or in that type of context. So if we say slang, can you read what slang is? Bjorn? Bjorn.
Basahin po, sir.
Yes po.
Slang is a vocabulary, words, phrases, and linguistic usage of an informal register, common in spoken conversation but avoided in formal writing. It also sometimes refers to the language generally exclusive to the members of particular in groups in order to establish group identity, exclude outsiders or both.
Okay, so if we say slang, this is a type of language that is or that originates from the subculture of the society or the subgroups of the society. Okay, for example, gay language. That is an example of slang. Okay, that is a slang because that is basically formed or basically created of a subgroup of a certain society. Okay, and slang, one of its features is that there is this essence of exclusivity in the use of slang. Pag sinasabi nating exclusivity, that is what we call the restricted feature of slang. Limited. What makes it limited? Ang nakakaintindi at ang nakakaunawa lamang nito ay yung mga taong part ng isang social group or part ng isang community wherein they create their own language for identity, for group identity. Okay? Kaya nga yung ating mga gay language, that is a slang. And that is before that is a language exclusive for for gays. But ngayon kasi no, yung exclusivity nito ay medyo ang exclusivity ang hindi na to medyo exclusive ngayon kasi not only gays could actually speak the language anymore. Even those who are not gays can already speak and understand that language. Okay? But still, that is what we call slang. Now, bakit nakaka-create tayo ng mga slang? Kasi they want the social group wants to exclude people who are not part of their group or part of their community or society. And there are three important features of slang. One is restricted. Ito yung sinasabi natin kaninang exclusivity, meaning to say that slang is very exclusive. How you interpret, how you understand the meaning of slang is fully dependent on the social group. So that means to say that if you are not part of that social group, you are not part of that community or of that group, then you wouldn't be able to know the meaning of those expressions or the words that they are actually using. That is restricted or that is exclusivity. Another, slang are creative languages. Creative, these are colorful, these are alive languages, these are imaginative languages, this is a colorful or creative language. Now, what makes it colorful or creative or imaginative? There is no established rule on how we form and create this language, this variety of language. Walang established na pamamaraan paano natin pino-form or ini-structure yung ganitong klase ng ganitong variety ng language. Usually, we have what we call Gned, which is popularized by Isko Moreno, right? or that's what we call etneb. Paano siya finorm? Binabaliktad, tama? Okay? So we actually, ang tawag natin dyan, we have what we call reversal. So reversal, we actually, that one, reversal. Ang tawag natin dyan sa formation na yan. We also have what we call association. Sometimes we form slangs by means of associations. Associations in terms of a name of a person. Kaya nga minsan nakakarinig tayo ng Tom Jones, right? Pag sinasabi nating Tom Jones, hindi ibig sabihin we are talking about the actor Tom Jones, but we are actually talking about being hungry, right? Yan. Sometimes they would say Tintin, right? You would say Tintin Bersola, meaning thin, okay? Mapayat. Yan. That is what we call association in terms of person. Yorme, yan, reversal ang tawag dyan. Now, another association, we also have what we call place association. Sometimes we also associate it with place. Like you would say, baliwag. You say baliwag Bulacan, meaning something, a person who is somewhat crazy. Okay? Yan. And more, marami pang mga places dyan. We also associate it with animals. That's why meron tayong mga salita, yung tinatawag nating buhaya. Okay? Yung mga police, di ba? Maraming buhayang naglipana sa kanto, buhaya. We also use ahas, okay, etc. Those are actually slang. And sometimes, aside from associations from names of animals, persons, and things, there are of course many ways pa on how we form a slang. But there are no established rules on how they are being formed. Kandiyan po tayo. Walang established na pamamaraan talaga paano sila pino-form, paano sila create. These are just language which are being experimented. These are just language which were actually taught by a person, and then boom, it is already used in the society. That is slang. Okay? Kaya nga minsan, bato. Yan, lagi natin narinig yan. Bato. Naku, nakabato na naman si ganito. So, if we say bato, we are not associating with the literal stone, but we are associating with somewhat else, with something else, right? Those basically is slang. Another language is also, language varies depending from region to region, from one gender to gender, from time and space. Pag sinasabi po nating gender, of course, the language that is used by males are also sometimes different the language that is used by females. Okay? Next, time. Time is, if we talk about time, slang may also die. Yan ang tinatawag nating slang. Ang slang, may buhay ito, pero hindi napakahaba ng buhay ng isang slang. Nawawala ang slang, na-endanger ang slang, namamatay ang mga slang. Example, Jejemon. Yung Jejemon natin that was very popular during the early 2000, I think. Okay? Pero ngayon, unti-unti na siyang na-endanger. Unti-unti na siyang nawawala. Even yung mga expressions na may mga G, di ba? Yung mga ga-ga-ga, something like that, those are also dying language. They already encountered language death. Now, question. Kailan namamatay ang wika? Kailan namamatay ang wika? Yes, Alexander?
Sir, kapag wala na pong nagamit.
Okay. Kapag hindi na to ginagamit, it is no longer passed on, it is no longer transmitted, it is no longer transferred from one generation to another generation, from one social group to another social group, then basically it will endanger, and then after that, it would die, literally. Okay, so ang wika namamatay din. Kapag hindi na ito ginagamit, then definitely it would die. Okay, next. Another type of language is of course what they call colloquial. So colloquial is still, this is informal. Okay, informal pa rin ang colloquial. Now, but what is the difference between colloquial and slang? Colloquial is usually used in spoken discourses or in conversations. This is somewhat short in English. Ito yung mga pinapaikli natin or sinushorten natin yung mga salita. Okay, that's colloquial. Examples: because, instead of saying because, then you would say cause. I am absent cause, 'di ba? I'm gonna, I am gonna, okay, I wanna, mga ganyan. Instead of saying I am going to the mall, you would say I'm gonna go to the mall. I wanna, I gonna go to the mall, I wanna go to the mall or whatever. Those are what we call non-standard languages. Even WhatsApp. Sometimes itong WhatsApp natin, ini-spelling pa natin yung ganyan. Ini-spelling pa natin ganyan. WhatsApp, right? For teenagers, for adolescent. But little that we know that these are what we call colloquial expressions. Okay? Even the use of the word ain't, yung contraction ng salitang I'm not, right? So these are what we call colloquial. In songs or in literature, we may encounter this word ain't or the contraction of I'm not. But in written communication, then the word ain't should not be used because that is informal or that is a non-standard language. Another, even the use of the word kinda, sorta, okay? Instead of saying kind of or sort of, or instead of saying lots of, you would say lota. Yan, those are what we call colloquial expressions. Colloquial expressions in the sense that we are clipping or we are shortening a word in order to form another word that is colloquial. Okay, short. Yeah, shortening. Okay? So it was there, so for example, you would say, instead of saying I don't know, you would say I don't know, right? So parang pag pinapakinggan natin, parang ang sarap-sarap pakinggan, right? Ang sarap-sarap pakinggan with all the accent and everything. But at the end of the day, little that we know that these are what we call colloquial expressions which are not used in formal conversations or even in written communication. For example, you're going to apply for a job and you would say, I wanna apply for a job, okay? Instead of saying, I want to apply for a job, then you would say, I wanna apply a job. Or instead, you are writing your application letter and you, instead of say, then you open it with, what's up? Or how are you, dude? Something like that. How are you, man? Man, those are actually colloquial expressions. Okay? Which shouldn't be used in formal context or in even in written communication. Now let us try to have this. Let us try to listen or determine the type of formality and informality of the language in these two conversations. We have phone conversation 1 and we have phone conversation 2. May we have Dioren for speaker 1 and may we have Loke for speaker 2 for phone conversation 1. And then we have Orculio and we have John Manuel for phone conversation 2. Okay, read.
Hello? May I speak to Mr. Jones, please?
Hello? Hold on please, I get you through.
Thank you.
Sorry, his line is engaged. Can you call again later?
No, sorry, I can't. Can you leave him a message?
Yes, of course.
Tell him I was glad to meet him and I'll come back as soon as possible.
All right, he'll be glad to hear about.
Okay, that's phone conversation 1. Let's compare it with the second phone, with phone conversation 2. Okay, take it away.
Hey man, what's up?
Not much. I'm just seeing what you're up to tonight.
I was kind of planning on just staying in and chilling at my place. You can swing by if you want.
I was I was thinking of going somewhere for a drink. I've been cooped up in a office all week and I need to lose and let loose a bit. Would you be up for that?
I don't know, man. I'm pretty beat. I'll let you know later if I get a second one. Wind.
Okay, cool. Later.
Later.
Okay, now what do you observe between the two conversations over the phone? May I ask the girls? Miss Tan.
Conversation one is more formal than conversation two.
Okay, so first is that phone conversation one is formal, while phone conversation two is informal. What else? Yes, Loke.
Sir, yung conversation one po is formal. Like yung word po na, may word po doon na how are you. Then yung second conversation is informal or yung tinatawag po natin na colloquial expression. Kasi po dito po yung mga words na chillin, what's up, yun po sir.
Okay, so in phone conversation one, uh, the language there is formal language, while in second conversation, the language used is colloquial. Okay, what else, Loke? Ay, what else? In terms of the relationship or the band shared between the two speakers, is there any difference? Yes or Julio?
Sa conversation number 2 po is magkaibigan po sila. And sa 1 po, parang ano po, customer, ganun sir.
Okay. So basically, in phone conversation one, it seems that it's formal. I mean, speaker one and speaker two do not really know each other, right? They do not know each other. Perhaps the relationship is not about business or about employment or whatever. But in phone conversation two, that is casual. The atmosphere is casual. The atmosphere is not so restricted. The feelings, the emotions between Jay and Andrew are very evident in their conversation. That they have rapport, that they have relationship, or they have casual engagement with one another. So the point here, class, is that if we talk about language use, or if we talk about language as a tool for communication, just remember two important points. One, you have to know your audience. You have to know who the person you're speaking to. Okay? So that you will be able to anchor what type of language will be used in the conversation. Another is that the context. Where does the communication take place? If it happens in the kanto-kanto, then if it happens in a formal setup, if it happens in a very formal setting, then you also have to anchor the language that is appropriate or that is suitable for that context or for that conversation. Okay? So that's colloquial. Next, another informal language is what we call the dialect. Dialect is also known as lek, which comes from the Greek word dia, which means across or between, and legend, which means speak or between speak or between or what we call dia legend or between or across speak. Okay, so a dialect is a regional or social variety of language which is distinguished by pronunciation, grammar, and or vocabulary. Now, under your dialect, actually itong dialect natin, Tagalog, that is our dialect. Or simply our mother tongue, that is our dialect. Our national language is Filipino, but our regional dialect is Tagalog, right? If we say dialect, it has its own pronunciation, it has its own grammar, it has its own vocabulary. For example, if you say, naku, naulan, naku, naambon, nakain pa ako eh, natulog pa ako eh. Okay? Nalakad, and so on. In Cavite, we actually use the nanana, tama? Naulan, nakain, naambon, etc. That is our regional dialect. But if you are going to apply the rule of Filipino grammar in that nanana, that's basically wrong. 'Di ba? Kasi dapat umuulan, lumalakad, kumakain, hindi yung nanana. For example, one of my students, a former student said rather, "Sir, nakain ka ba ng isda?" Wow. Nakain ka ba ng isda? The interpretation may be, ako ang kinain ng isda or kumain ako ng isda. So, but of course, if we talk to, I mean, Caviteño to Caviteño, they would be able to understand each other because they share the same dialect. But if you are going to use that na, that regional dialect to a pure Filipino, for example, a pure Filipino speaking person, definitely that would basically be wrong because it doesn't follow the correct rule of the Filipino language. That's original dialect. Regionalism, tinatawag po natin diyan. Sabi nung isa ba, mayroon bang ba? Parang wala pa akong narinig na ba sa ano, Cavite. Paano yung ba? Ba? Narinig ko lang lagi dito mga nanana eh. Okay. So we also have what we call the sociolect, meaning it is a language by the socio-economic class, meaning to say it is a language by the elite, the language of the poor, the language of the professionals. Ayan, that's sociolect. Next is we have ethnolect. Ethnolect, meaning to say this is the dialect spoken by ethnic groups ng ating pong mga pangkat etniko, yung sarili nilang mga lengguwahe. Okay? For example, ang Mangyan, meron silang sariling ethnolect. Meron silang may sarili silang language. That's what we call ethnolect. And we actually have, unless we have what we call the idiolect. This, of course, the language or languages is spoken by each individual with or sometimes a person who is multilingual. Ang tawag natin doon, idiolect. Pag sinasabi nating multilingual, a person who could speak many languages, that is multilingual. So meaning, if you can speak so many language other than your mother tongue or your mother language, ang tawag natin doon, idiolect. But sometimes our dialects, ang atin pong mga dialects ay nag-result din sa tinatawag nating dialect prejudice. So if we say dialect prejudice, again, this is a barrier to communication, itong dialect prejudice in which we stereotype, we discriminate a person based on how he/she pronounces a word or on the way he speaks. For example, yung Bisaya. Kasi minsan pag narinig natin yung isang tao na pagbabaliktad na niya yung i at yung I, sinabi, naku, Bisaya ka, right? For example, you would say, pumunta ako sa sembahan, nakinig ako ng mesa, ang galing ng pare. Okay? Instead of saying, pumunta ako sa simbahan, nakinig ako ng misa, ang galing ng pare, na pagbabaliktad nila yung i at saka yung I. And because of that, it may result into funny jokes, or sometimes we even laugh at that person, we bully that person, we would say, nako, Bisaya, Bisaya, or whatever. That is now what we call dialect prejudice. Okay? You are now this little that we know that we are already making discrimination about that person because of his dialect. Okay, kaya itong Bisaya na to, next time ayaw na nang magsalita kasi pag magsalita siya at magkamali na naman siya, mapagbaliktad na naman niya yung i at ng I, baka pagtawanan naman siya. Pagtawanan na naman siya ulit. And that would already be a traumatic experience on her part. At sabi dito, dialect prejudice is endemic in public. Mga punto at misplace of letters po. Yeah, that's right. Dialect prejudice is endemic in public life. Pag sinasabi nating endemic in public life, it affects us personally as an individual. Okay? Kaya minsan yung mga may punto, yung mga may regionalism, yung mga may napagbabaliktad nila yung mga letters or whatever, sometimes ayaw na nilang makipag-communicate. Okay? Ayaw na nilang makipasalamuha sa tao. Ayaw na nilang magsalita. Okay? Ayaw na nilang mag-share ng kanilang opinion and ideas because they already have the fear that they may be able to commit mistake or they may be able to commit language error. Okay? Kaya it affects the person, not only the person, not only his personality, even his emotion, even all his li that may be affected because of our dialect prejudice. Okay? Now, so to sum it up, we have here varieties of subgroups of language. We have standard, slang, dialect, colloquial, and jargon. Now, to end our discussion, I have here language registers refers to the level of formality or informality of the language used. Now, even The Good Doctor, I know you have watched The Good Doctor already. Okay? Even in The Good Doctor, in that movie, sabi dito, Dr. Classman, Sean, what are you doing down here? Sabi ni Dr. Murphy, I'm waiting for my patient to fart. I use fart in front of the patient to put her at ease. But I should use flatulence to you because you are the president of this hospital. So it means to say that even yung paggamit ng salitang utot, di ba? Dapat may kaangkupan yan. Saan natin yan ginagamit? For example, the doctor is talking to our patient, then he used the word fart to make the patient comfortable or at ease. But then when he is talking to his superior, okay, to the president of the hospital where he is actually working with, instead of using fart, ginamit niya ay flatulence, which is, of course, that's what we call language use or language registers. That the way we use the language, whether it's formal or informal, that depends on the first person we're speaking to and the context where the conversation happens. Okay? So perhaps that is the most important takeout this evening. The most important takeout this evening is that in communication, you have to remember that language is very, very powerful. That language is a tool for socialization, for interaction. Thus, we have to use the appropriate and suitable language depending on the person is spoken to and the context where the communication takes place. Okay? Kung yung kausap natin ay superior natin, we have to use the formal language, okay? But if we are talking to our friends, casual friends, our close friends, then we basically use the informal type of language. So dapat inaayon natin, inaangkop natin yung wika na gagamitin natin sa ating pakikipag-communicate. Okay, depending on the level of formality and informality of the communication process. Is that clear, guys? Okay. So actually, after this, you will have your quiz on intercultural communication. That is 25 items, multiple choice, 20 item multiple choice, and 5 item true or false question. Okay? That will be your activity. Wala naman siyang deadline. Kasi kahit naman i-deadline ko, marami pa rin gumagawa sa sunod pa ng mga araw or whatever. Okay? That's noted. Second is I uploaded activity 2 in the Google Classroom. That is, you are going to form a group of 5 wherein you are going to create your fictional country, describing your fictional country, describe the form or create the culture of your country, okay, and so on and so forth. And then you are going to record it, video record it, okay? Yan. Actually, may guidelines akong ibinigay dyan sa Google Classroom. Paano nyo siya gagawin? Okay po? So, pakisundan na lang po yung atin po mga guidelines. So, that is a group task, a group activity. But you have to do that virtually. There's no need to go out. There's no need to meet. Okay? You could actually record it via Google Class or via Zoom recording. Okay? And then, I will give a drive where you're going to upload your recordings. Any question? Wala? Walang tanong? Paano po groupings? Kayo na po bahala mag-group, okay? Ng inyo pong kung sino po ang gusto nyong ka-group. Yes, di mailig.
Fictional po. Fictional.
Fictional lang. Fictional pag sinabing fictional, imaginative lang. Okay, gawa-gawa lang. Hindi yan totoo. Fictional. Okay? Creative. Yes, tama. Gawa-gawa lang. Fictional nga eh. parang ipopromote nyo yung fictional country ninyo. You describe the country, the people of your country, the geographic location of your country, the culture in your country, in your fictional country, and everything. Okay? So bahala na kayo dyan. Actually, hindi naman yan restricted. Bahala na kayo dyan maging creative, maging imaginative, and how you are going to present your output. Is that clear, guys? Wow, it's raining too hard. It's raining cats and dogs. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes
so
po.
Yes, sir.
perhaps ipaubayo na sa akin yung 6 minutes because I still have to go home to Dasmariñas. So baka naman pwedeng utangin yung 6 minutes.
Okay, sir.
Ingat,
Yes po,
sir.
sir.
No deadline. You have to give it before midterm.
Okay
Okay.
po.
Goodbye.
Bye, sir. Ingat po.
Goodbye, sir.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you po.
Kapatid.
Take care, highway, sir. Take care.